What's up, Ray?
What's going on, Kev?
Man, I'm doing good, man. Huh?
Dr. Johnson.
Hey, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. And you?
Doing good, man. I appreciate you coming on our show tonight, man, giving us a little bit of your time.
Oh, no, man. I appreciate it, man. Invite. Just like us chopping it up like we always do.
Hey, man, I appreciate it, man. For those who are chiming in now and jumping in, this is Life After Sports podcast. The theme tonight is investing in your future. And we have a special guest tonight, Ray Shipman, former NFL player, as well as the Director of Business Development at Memorial Sports and Medicine Center. So this is episode 7. Hey, we going up every week, man. We bringing some new people on here every week, man. I'm proud to have you on here, my brother.
Nah, man, I congratulate you on what you just started, man. I've been following it. Some of the guests you had, man. I'm just honored to be on some of the list that you've had of these guests, man. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, I appreciate it, man. I love the things that you're doing, and I wanted to get your viewpoint while we're on here. And it's so much stuff going on in the media, man, in regards to just what's happening with police brutality against African American and racism, and I was like, man, I didn't do anything on my podcast or didn't come on IG Live this week. It was just too much.
Too much in 2020, man. Just rewind before all of what's going on with police brutality. This pandemic we're going through, man. That's stressful enough as it is.
Yeah, it's been a crazy 2020. January was the fire in Australia. Then was COVID. Then was the pandemic with the COVID-19, and then now this. And
we're not even halfway through the year yet. Insane, man.
We just hit June, but I said I didn't talk about it at all this week. I said, when I get on here this Friday, I said, I'm gonna get in and ask you about it. And I said, man, how do you feel about what's going on in the country? Like just what's happening in general. And when I say in general, I'm predominantly talking about the racism and the police brutality from that retrospect.
It's frustrating, man. It really is. It's history repeating itself. And that's the sad thing about it. We've gone through this before, and it's basically deja vu. So my goal is, or my dreams is to see it, we move forward, that we use this as an opportunity to grow as a nation. Yeah. Like I said, it's frustrating. It's history repeating itself, and just a lot of things that we're seeing out there are people acting on their frustrations.
Yeah.
So it's tough times, man.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, and it's a lot of young people they want to see the change, but it's like they're trying to still educate themselves on the history of it. And they want to see something different, and I know I've had conversations with other colleagues of mine, and it's like, what is it going to take, for us to move and get to that next level? The protests that people are protesting, we're seeing some change, but in history, just doing research, when things like this happen or occur, people are talking about it for this particular time, and then when it dies off, was there any change to make sure that these things are not currently happening over and over and over and over? And so my thing is just, man, if we can be able to, I don't know what it is, I don't have the answer, but if there's something where we can be able to make laws in place where these things are not happening all the time, it would be.
You hit on the point, man, like laws. That's one of the things. Knowing who your local officials are, who you can reach out to, law enforcement, politicians. I know it sounds cliche because we really don't have that good rapport with politicians because they come by night and they leave and they move up the ladder.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, the solution, man. It's history repeating itself. It's frustrating. What's most frustrating to me right now is just seeing how such a sensitive topic are bringing people apart or tearing people apart who are fighting for the same cause. I'm sure you've seen, if you somebody who has a different opinion as you, you're going to tear them down. But that isn't winning because we're all fighting for the same cause, man. I'm sure you've seen on our own side. African Americans, we're fighting against each other because we don't have the solution, but we disagree with someone else's solution rather than just coming together, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know what's going to take, but I mean, whatever the movement is going forward and trying to do it the right way without looting and destroying people's buildings and stuff like that,
Right.
you know, I'm all for it. But in the sports world, because we both are familiar with the sports world, let's talk about Drew Brees, man. What's up with his statement? And then he goes back and then apologizes. Like
That one there, I was disappointed in that one, man. I can only judge from what I heard. I don't
yeah,
know his heart.
yeah,
I
yeah,
wish he would show a little more empathy.
yeah,
And then the bias on just his experiences and what his family experienced from the
yeah,
flag, and
yeah.
that alone, and not including the experiences of the majority of the NFL players
Yeah,
who were
correct.
scrutinized for the way they're protesting. So
Yeah,
it disappointed me, man, and
yeah.
I don't really have too much else to say about
To
it.
say about it, yeah. And I was listening to Stephen A. on, I think it was First Take, and he was talking about how he was disgusted with it, but he was saying that the question that was asked to Drew Brees at that particular time was talking about, I think in 2020, how would he feel if they were still to protest the flag? So I think that was the question. The people didn't really get to hear what the question was; they just heard
Right,
his response.
right.
And so, not to say that that was how he articulated his response without no empathy at all. But going like just what's going on here, and then he had Malcolm Jenkins on it on that's that's playing with him
Exactly.
now.
And I get you. And that's what makes it worse for me in my sense, because if this was something they would have recorded when the Kaepernick situation initiated, then we would
That's
have said, you
different.
know what, he's maybe doesn't feel the same way now that he sees what's going on in America. But the fact that
Correct.
the recent interview
Yeah.
and he sees firsthand what's going on right now, and for him to still have that response, granted he apologized,
Yeah.
but it's just that one was disappointing, man.
Disappointed. Hey, that locker room gonna be a little bit crazy this year in New Orleans.
The whole city may be, man. That's the city. I played for the Saints. That
Yeah.
city there, man. They ride for the Saints. They
Yeah.
ride for Drew Brees, man. He's done a lot for that community, and it was just a letdown. His apology said his actions are gonna speak louder than his words, which I hope to see, and I'm sure they're gonna hold him to it. But
Yeah.
just think that platform he has and being the leader for such a
long time in that
African
organization.
community,
Yeah.
right? That he would have included and been more understanding it.
Well, their PR department is going to have a lot on their hands this upcoming year to deal with. So I wish them the best in that. But let's talk about you, man. Today's about you and about your journey. And so let's talk about your childhood. Where you grew up. For those who may not know,
I grew up South Florida, Miramar, between Miramar and Miami. I was born in Miami, but my parents moved a little further north once I was in elementary school. Attended Pace High School, the private school, so I'm a private school student. But I enjoyed my experience. I attended Monsigor with Pace. It's in Miami.
Yeah.
Played basketball and football there. So
yeah. So, which sport did you play first?
Football, man. You know Miami.
Okay.
Miami's a mecca of football. So growing up down here, the first thing I had in my hand was a football.
Yeah, yeah. Did your dad play any football, or it was in the family?
I think that's the reason my sports career kind of panned out the way it did, because my dad never played football. My dad only played basketball. And you see my dad. My dad's 6'6", 350. And that's on a good day.
Yeah.
So he had never played football. He didn't have the football background. He loved basketball. So it was always him teaching me basketball. I could see the passion he had when he spoke about basketball.
Yeah.
So I followed suit and just went along with basketball. But better than football, if you ask me.
Yeah. So, and we're going to get back to your high school, all the accolades that you have in high school. But before we get there, I want to talk about how invested were your parents in your childhood. Like how, people don't see, they just see your career. They see what you've done. They see where you are now, but they don't understand the investment that was made. So talk a little bit about that.
Oh, man, it was huge. It was huge. And I don't want to say I took it for granted. I think I'm just starting to realize how impactful they were the older I get, and now that I have my own son. But they didn't miss a practice, Kevin. My parents didn't miss a practice. They didn't miss a game. They both had careers. Now that I have my own career, the 9 to 5, and just seeing how strenuous that could be on your day and how much energy it takes to clock in and clock out. But then for them to come home and just turn the switch on or taking the uniform off and being a
And be like, let's go, Ray, let's go.
Right, exactly. They have more energy than I did.
Wow. Wow. Well, let's talk about your high school experience, man. You had a tremendous resume at your high school. Now, what made the decision for you to go to Pace?
Pace was a powerhouse. When I was in middle school, I had a close friend of mine who played at Pace, and I would go to the games. I actually was practicing with them when I was in middle school. I don't know. It's past the statute of limitations. They won't get in trouble. But I was going out there, man, as a kid. And I used to always go catch the games, the atmosphere Pace had. They were, back then, dominant in football and basketball. So it was a no-brainer for me, man. I always knew I wanted to go to Pace.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about your experience at Pace. I mean, minus the accolades, and I have to say you two-time state championship, and then you're a Gatorade Player of the Year, and you played 2 sports, and you were good in both sports. To put it down,
a lot of people don't know this. I only played football 1 year in high school. My freshman year, I stopped after that.
Are you serious?
I played 1 year of high school football. I didn't even play football after my freshman year.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What made you? You said freshman year.
Freshman year, that was it. 1 year at Pace.
What made that decision that you changed from playing football to finding a passion for basketball?
I think my early success in basketball. My freshman year in football, my playing time varied depending on the opponent we had. Yeah. But when I went to basketball, man, it was instant gratification. I was all county. We went to the state championship my freshman year. I was a leading scorer towards the playoffs and the state championship game. So being young, not really knowing the journey.
The journey.
Sports, but I just latched on to basketball. But I was fortunate enough to switch back in college, and I was thankful for that.
Well, and so now knowing that basketball, you played football your freshman year, then basketball you played the rest of your career at Pace.
Right.
And with that being said, how did you make your transition to go and the transition for college? Like, how was, like, even though you played basketball more, what was that transition in regards to the recruiting process?
Well, in basketball, high school, I was recruited by almost every school in the country. Had offers from every state and every college in the state. And it got frustrating, man, because think about it, I'm 17, 18 years old, not really understanding of the process, but I had these adults drooling at my feet, telling me why they want me to come to the school, and it was overwhelming. And now that I look back at it, I wish I had done my research a little more and took more visits to other universities, but it was frustrating, Kev, man. And imagine calls 24/7. You get mail. It's just it was stressful. It was a sigh of relief when I committed to the University of Florida. I actually committed there early. I committed my junior year.
Oh, wow.
My entire senior year, I knew where I was going.
Were you just tired? Were you tired of the recruiting process, and that's why you made an early decision?
I was tired, man. I was exhausted.
So you went to University of Florida on a basketball scholarship, and so let's talk about your experience at UF, and then what made you transition in from playing at UF to going to UCF.
UF didn't fit my style of play. I'll be blatantly honest. It didn't fit my style of play. Nothing against Coach Donovan or the University of Florida. Like most freshmen, the transition from high school where you're the focal point of your team, you're the best player on the court night in and night out. Then just getting to college in that transition where everyone there is just as good as you. My freshman year didn't go as I wanted to go. Didn't go as I thought it would. But that summer going into my sophomore year, I put it all on the line that offseason. And for it not to be successful my sophomore year, I knew that was when it was time for me to move on. But initially, I thought I was going to go play basketball elsewhere. Yeah. It wasn't until I had a come to Jesus moment home one night that I decided I wanted to go back to my first love, which was football.
Wow. And at that time, like, how did it make your dad feel? Because I know he was just like, it's based on what you want to do.
He kind of knew. He wasn't surprised when I told him. His whole thing was, well, you better get a scholarship because I'm not paying for college. Because he thought it would have been a lot harder for me to get a scholarship being that I hadn't played football since my freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
So,
Well, man, I mean, I'm being honest. It's very rare that you have a college player who played two sports in high school, but you play basketball, then to go and play at a top a top level institution. You at University of Florida playing basketball, and then to make that change and go to UCF. So, how did that conversation happen, or in that decision, and then you getting the full scholarship to go and play football at UCF?
well, Carol, I think we're going to start seeing a lot of athletes like I was.
Yeah.
I think the reason that we don't is because we've been focusing on one sport and youth sports. Once a kid shows promise in one sport, the parent focuses on it. But, man, if you look at athletes in general, basketball players in South Florida who are 6'4", 6'5", shooting guards, the agility that they have can easily transfer over to football, man. We're starting to see a lot more of it now than when I was in high school.
Yeah.
But I don't want to take anything for myself because it wasn't that hard. And I think a lot of athletes, or basketball players in particular, who are those tweeners between 6'4", 6'5", who have agility, man, you can make a lot of money on the football field. Tight end, defensive end.
Talk about Jimmy Graham.
Exactly. I played with Jimmy.
Yeah.
But Jimmy had never even played football. At least I played football coming up.
Wow.
Jimmy never played football. There's a lot of Jimmys out there, man. I'm telling you.
But it's a lot of them that's in the league that never played, that played played a vast majority in another sport, only played a little bit, and they're doing well in the league.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, athletes.
So after you did your 2 years at UCF, let's talk about your experience at UCF while you played football there, and then the transition of you getting picked up by the New Orleans Saints.
I had a great time at UCF. I'd be lying to you if I say it was easy, man, because that transition was tough.
Yeah.
Going from the AC, practicing indoors, to going out to Orlando summers, 2 days. But a lot of the tough times that I went through at Florida built a lot of toughness and just learned how to get through obstacles and fight through things. So when I was going through some of the things I went through at UCF with football, just from the transition in itself, I was able to go back to some of those things that uplifted me back when I was having the tough times at Florida. So I was able to fight through it. When I did start to see playing time at UCF, I took advantage of the opportunity, man, and never looked back.
Yeah. So, and I know we're in a time now. I was reading something. Actually, it was this morning. I was reading talking about history, but I was reading about how HBCUs were so big in regards to football. Back in the days, I'm talking about 1950s and the 60s. The 60s is where 60s, 70s is where it transitioned, where a lot of the players, and that's where around segregation and they were, things were changing worldwide. And now schools like Alabama, LSU, University of Florida, all these schools that would have not had black players ever at these schools, they start to notice that in order for us to be successful, we have to start gravitating and getting those players to play at our schools. I was reading, it was William C. Rodden. He wrote the book $40 Million Slaves, but he was talking about it because he played at Morgan State.
They're in, I think they're in the MEAC conference.
Yeah, MEAC conference.
Howard, they're in the same conference.
And it was just interesting to hear the history. Like the history behind it, it makes you have a little bit better understanding of how football has transitioned into today. Like how students
it transitioned, but it's kind of frustrating in itself when you think about it. Because if you look at the funding of those HBCUs compared to the Alabamas and Tennessees of the world, the admission rates, think about those athletes would have stayed there. Think about those TV deals these HBCUs, when I say HBCUs, historically black colleges would have had they kept those athletes.
Yeah.
And made it a trend. I see you have some athletes now. I think the number one player in the country, what is it, Mikey Williams or something like that. Yeah. He's testing the waters. I know he put out a tweet saying he's considering going to HBCU. But don't play with us like that, man. if you feel that way deep in your heart, go take a visit. Go get some history on it, man.
Yeah. And I think, and I really feel like players should take visits and go. It's a lot of great players who went to small schools that still had the opportunity to go to the league and do something great.
Right. Because if you're good, they're gonna find you, man.
They're gonna find you.
They can't hold back down.
From coaching, I know. Look, if you see a player, you're gonna find them. It don't matter what school they attend. If they looking to transfer, you're gonna find them. So I definitely agree with that.
Jerry Rice, HBCU.
Who? Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice.
Wow.
The list go on. We got a history lesson.
So let's talk about your experience in the NFL and when you got to New Orleans, like your time there, what you've learned. Let's talk about that.
It was fast, man. It went by so fast. And still to this day, I look back and look at things I wish I would have grabbed onto when I was there. But every day was something new, man. Just transitioning from being a college athlete where your schedule is class, football, go hang out, same thing over again, to now this is your job.
Yeah.
You're a pro.
Yeah.
You're seeing coaches get fired. You're seeing players get fired. Talented coaches, talented players. But that's when you have to understand that it's a business.
Yeah.
I had to learn that on the hard way early on, but to this day, man, I dig back and take things I've learned from that experience and transition to what I'm doing now.
Now, so based on your time there, did you think that were you able to invest in your future in regards to the NFL at that particular time, or everything was very new to you when you got there?
I don't know. I'll say this one thing. I did grasp on a few things. Just seeing how marketable athletes were. I'll never forget. We had a luncheon, and we were there with CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. I'm talking hundreds of CEOs in the room.
Wow.
And to see how giddy they got when they saw us. So mind you, they would come and they would ask for autographs, and you had the older players who were on the team. They were just like, oh yeah, just nonchalant with it. But in the back of my mind, I was like, yo, I'm going to need these guys when I'm done playing ball. These are the guys you need to rub elbows with. And that's when my knowledge of networking started to rise. And I started understanding, hey, it's all about who you know, how you market yourself, and networking, man.
So you were able to understand the business of the NFL in that during that time while you were there.
I did. And I was so disappointed in Drew Brees, man, because my time there, he was a pro's pro. Just watching how he carried himself, the things he did for the city. I joke all the time. I call him Iron Man. He's like a superhero for the city, man. So with him knowing how much he meant to that city, it just hurt me. His lack of empathy in that statement. But like I said, I'm eager to see where he takes this. If he can be an advocate, he said he's educated himself. I just want to see what his next steps are. Yeah, awareness of what's going on.
Well, I know I have a lot of viewers. Some are in high school. Some are interested in knowing. Everybody has a different story, and I think that's what makes this podcast and every person that we have on this podcast, their story is so different. Right. And I wanted you to just to talk about your experience while you were playing in the NFL, what happened, and what was what that transition looked like for you.
So throughout my career, I never had really any major injuries. So as soon as I get to New Orleans, before we even go into camp, I get hurt. Very bad, severe hamstring tear. So I had to battle through adversity there. And mind you, I'm injured. And every day I'm going into a meeting, there's one less athlete. So
every day.
So in the back of my mind, am I going to be cut the next day? Do I need to go out there and try to show that I can play when I know I can't compete to the best of my ability and may re-injure myself? So I faced some adversity early on, man. But like I said, my family, my support system, man, that's really where I grew stronger through some of those tough times. Yeah. And just seeing how it was a business, man. And a lot of people don't know that part of the NFL, man. A lot of people, a lot of kids. You say you have listeners on here, man.
Yeah.
NFL, I never try to deter a kid from their dream. But just giving them the sheer statistics of how many athletes make it pro.
Give it to them.
2%. It may have gone down, Cal. It may have gone down.
I think it did go down because I think I had Patrick Surtain here last week. And I think he said 1%. So
you have a better chance of being a doctor. They can't hold you back from being a doctor.
Yeah.
If you study, you pass your test, you do what you have to do, you're going to be a certified physician. You can do everything in your capabilities to become a better football player. But if they are beyond their salary cap, if they have a player drafted who they want to invest in over you, they're not going to pick you, man. You can get hurt.
Yeah.
So it's a lot that a lot of athletes aren't aware of what goes into being a professional athlete, which I just hope that they'll educate themselves. And it comes from people like you and I, myself who's played in the NFL, and you who rub elbows and have managed NFL players, just to let them know, man.
Yeah, because I think that information, I think if they were able to understand that information early on, I think the way that they navigate through high school and college becomes totally different. And I really, I mean, maybe one of these days we'll talk, and we talked about it, forming a program or something where they can get the information, because I think the world is where it is today because of lack of information for a lot of people.
Right.
If they understood the information, they would treat people different.
Exactly.
And so information is key. And so, I mean, I think it's very important because, like you said, it's 1%. You have a better chance of being a doctor. You have a better chance of being a professor or any of those things. And the students that look like us, or student athletes that look like us, they mind don't even think on that, right?
They don't. A lot of times you'll see athletes, they don't even know the opportunity they have in front of them, man. The scholarship.
Yeah.
So the network that they're amongst while being in college, where their peers who they grew up in the same neighborhood, who may have had a better GPA than them, still aren't granted to get those same opportunities. And to see some of the athletes wasted, that's what just makes it more of my obligation, and like yours, we've spoke before numerous of times on just speaking to athletes, man.
Yeah, because I think, and with this platform, because we talk about life after sports, but it's also about when one career ends, you know, a whole new set of opportunities begin in your second career.
Right.
And so I'd also play with the slogan, the NFL, not for long.
Not for long.
Not for long. So when players start to get to understand, or student athletes get to understand that and understand the blueprint, that I want them to be successful. If they're playing in the NFL, be successful at it. But anything that you put your hands, or anything you put effort in, that you want to excel and understand. And I think if we get them to that point where they can be able to understand what's in front of them and not be, because this is what ends up happening, Ray. It's like a blindfold that's on their eyes. Right. And they're going there with no direction. And every time you go in there with no direction, your head hit a wall. Every time.
Right. You're right. And not to give them any excuses, man, but some of these colleges, these institutions, they're getting them in and out. They're getting them in and out to play sports. They give them the African American Studies majors to make sure they have a 3.0 GPA, so the coach can get a bonus at the end of the year.
And get that raise.
Walking out with degrees that are essentially useless.
And then when you look down the line 5 years from now, that coach just got a boost, got a $2-point-something million extra bonus, right? And if they had to go back and find a player, that player didn't even graduate, that player didn't even use their degree for anything, and they're back home working at a car wash.
It's sad, man.
It's sad. So hopefully we could do something to change that narrative, you know.
This podcast, man, you got a great platform there, man.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. So let's talk about your other things outside of the league, and before we get to your current job. Many people don't know, but you're an author. Talk about your book.
Okay, yeah, my children's book, and this, as you can tell how passionate we talk about young athletes, man. I found it my obligation to do something to try to impact young athletes at that early age, and I saw the best way being fit is a children's book. When I came home from playing ball, a lot of teachers would ask me to come speak for their classes, and it never failed. I would go into class, and the teacher would always have a student they would want me to speak to. Never failed. I would speak to the class, and on my way out, the teacher, hey, can you come talk to John? And John was always the most athletic kid in the class. He was the best football player, but he didn't do his schoolwork. And the teachers had John's best interest. They were pleading, like, John, because they've seen it happen where the athletes go through the system and come back home and results in crime, or, like you said, jobs. I don't want to take anything from anyone's job, but just not reaching their full potential. So I knew when I would speak, sometimes it would go through one ear and out of the other. So I wanted something to give them something tangible, man, something that they could pick up and read and share with their peers, their younger brothers. And I saw the best way being a children's book. And I was real intentional with that children's book to make sure that it was a young character, the main character, that looked like them. Because let's be honest, we're known for being athletic, we're talented. So let's not beat around the bush. This is directly to my young African American student athletes.
And a lot of times when you go in these libraries and bookstores, they don't have books that represent us.
They don't. They don't.
And that narrative's changed because you have a book and I saw you post something on your Instagram the other day that had different authors. And it looked like it was different Black authors with different children's books.
There's a lot out there, man.
There's a lot out there.
There's awareness, man. There's a lot. There's a lot. And for any parents watching this, man, look at, you can Google. Everything's on Google. I say Google and YouTube University. You can go in there and type in Black children's books.
Yeah.
And on Amazon, man, the list goes on.
Where can they, if they wanted to purchase your book, what website do they need to go to? So
the title of the book is No Grades, No Play. As simple as that. You don't have grades, you can't play. And the website is nogradesnoplay.com. You can purchase the book. So.
What's the age group for that book? Because I know some parents.
It's a simple read. And like I said, I was intentional with it. Intentional with it. It's a picture book. So first grade to about third or fourth grade.
Okay. Now let's talk about the things that you've done in the community in regards to your philanthropy. And I know you're passionate about helping the youth. Talk about your foundation.
Kel, it's so funny. We use this word philanthropy. I had no idea what that was when I was doing what I was doing. I had no idea, man. Now, the older I'm getting, the more experience.
Hey, at least you're being honest. At least you're being honest.
I was trying to help people. I had a camp. I had a basketball and football camp. I did a health fair. What I wanted to do. I wanted to help people. But as I started educating myself, my mom was right there helping me with the 501c3. She's making sure I was able to put things in place on my foundation so I could strive in it. But my nonprofit is Championships Foundation, and it's everything that we've been talking about on here, man. And that's raising an awareness to young athletes on the importance of education. So we've done camps, we've done after-school programs. I'm out there speaking. You and I worked on things together.
Correct.
Playing a beach seminar where we went to St. Thomas University and spoke to their athletes and had former athletes who are now directors of companies, mayors, lawyers, and just sharing knowledge, man.
Yeah. Look, man, I think a lot of times, and I wish whoever players from any sport that are listening to this, think about what their give back would be when they're playing. A lot of times they don't think about it at all. And I think sometimes because they don't understand how it works, goes back to the education. If we know it, then we understand it, then we could be able to really relate and do it and understand what we're doing. And I think if we have more players that are standing up and wanting to also give back to their community, I think it'll be imperative. Because I don't think a lot do it, but they do it. For me, it's like two types of give back. One, I'm just giving, but I'm not really vocally present there. Right. You could give your money. Doesn't mean that your money's going to good use. And it doesn't mean that you're invested in it, if you understand what I mean.
You have to be more invested. That's when you'll see the change. And to be honest with you, I got lucky, man. I was one of those athletes. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I had a mom who was a teacher, dad was in law enforcement, and they always made sure I did my schoolwork and had good grades. So granted, I was able to fall back on good grades, but I didn't know what career I wanted. So we have to be intentional on talking about the different careers out there outside of
sports,
music. Come on, man. I work with guys who make just as much money as athletes in careers that have never been talked about.
Look, I think I was talking to a youth maybe about a week or two ago about how much Stephen A makes. And they were laughing. They're like, what? He got a contract for how much a year? I said, oh, it's about 8 to 10 mil a year that he got on his new contract.
But he wasn't always just a personality. He was a journalist. So this is a craft. We have to make sure we let these kids know this is a craft. Social media will deter them from any hard work. Everything is instant gratification. Stephen A. Smith worked on his craft, man. He was a journalist. He didn't just pop up overnight to be one of the most known public broadcasters. He worked
Broadcasters.
on
But you know, I just don't think that they're, and this is something that I'm gonna take this and hopefully we'll do something together on it. But just being able to educate people on the different industries that's out there.
Right.
And if they're educated about it, they could be able to start being a CEO at an early age, at least having the mindset.
Right. Kev, man, I don't want to break it to you. We sound like we old, man. sound like we getting old. We keep talking about what the kids need to do. One before. I'm not getting old, Kev. I don't know about you, man.
I'm pushing almost 40, but I'm not there yet. But
oh man, I'm just saying, this conversation, we sound like old men. Gotta tell these kids what they need to do. Back in my day.
Hey, that probably for me, it probably comes from because I've coached for 10 years. So as a head coach, your mindset is kind of at that moment and at that point. But man, let's talk about the opportunity that you have now to make a direct impact of the lives of others through working at Memorial Hospital. And so talk about your position and what you do.
So right now, my role is the Director of Business Development for the Memorial Sports Medicine Center. It's a new program that we started 2 years back. We had a team of orthopedic surgeons who were trained in sports medicine. So what is trained in sports medicine? These physicians did fellowships in sports medicine. So they were on the sidelines at universities. One of our physicians played football for Central Michigan. Another covered the University of Virginia's football team. So in essence, everyone's an athlete. You can have the same type of injury as an NFL linebacker to your shoulder from lifting your arm up to reach for a cabinet. So we cater to athletes, but that doesn't mean we don't see all other orthopedic issues. So like I said, we started 2 years ago. We're based out of Memorial Healthcare System in Hollywood, Florida. My role is to grow the business, building relationships in the community. Right now, we have agreements to be the sports medicine providers for an HBCU, Florida Memorial University,
Okay.
State College, Broward College, and we just signed on with Johnson & Wales. So our physicians are the team doctors for all of those athletic institutions.
Wow, man, you're busy out there. You're making sure that you getting all these institutions.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying, and in the same time, I'm getting direct contact with student athletes, man. So it's just a blessing. And mind you, we're there for medical needs, but while I'm there, or those athletes are in our offices, I'm talking to them. I'm getting to know them. I'm seeing what their majors are.
Yeah.
It's not too late to change your major. What are you thinking about after sports? Because honestly speaking, some of those institutions that I named, they aren't having NFL or NBA players come out. So
Correct.
Reality kicks in a lot earlier for those athletes. So I'm excited to see what they're going to start doing, just with the relationships we're building with them from now.
How did that opportunity unfold for you in regards to at the hospital? Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, we got disconnected. I'm here. Hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I was saying, how did that opportunity unfold for you to work at the hospital?
Honestly, man, I saw it online. A lot of people ask me, who'd you know? Little Indeed.com. Any athlete who's transitioning from college, any adult who's looking for a job, you should be on Indeed.com just as much as you're on Facebook and Instagram. They upload new jobs on the hour. I was on LinkedIn. I make sure I keep my LinkedIn up to date. And so I found it online. It's so funny. Sherelle, which is my wife, you know Sherelle, she was my girlfriend then, when I applied for the job, she was kind of upset because she goes, it was a manager position then. The position I have now was a manager before that. And she goes, why are you applying for a job at that level and you've never had a job before? But when I read the job description, man, I felt like that was for me, man. And I sold myself. In that interview, I sold myself on why I was the person for that job. And now every day I show why I was the right pick for that job.
Hey, man, that's the power. Also, the power of networking, and power of networking, and then also when you get get into a position to perform, you go out there and you do exactly what you did on the field, what you did on the basketball court.
We'll be here for another hour. I talk about that, man. Just the skills, man. Like, I had never had a job before, Cal. My whole life I was an athlete. So it was a little intimidating, that transition of what is corporate America like. I've never had a 9-to-5. But, man, to this day, I lean back on the skills I learned from being an athlete, working well with others, being a captain. Right now I'm a director, have employees, time management, setting goals and achieving those goals. All these are things that we mandated.
The same thing.
Same thing, man. Think about it, Kev. You have corporate 500 companies who pay athletes to come speak. And all those athletes are doing it, telling them stories of perseverance from them being athletes.
Correct.
How they work well with their teammates. It's just, it's the same thing, man. And it's not
the same thing.
Intimidating once you get in there.
Yeah. And that's what's up, man. It's very interesting to know your story. And a lot of people don't know. I mean, when they hear about athletes, they don't know, okay, well, let them know you have your masters.
Mm-hmm. We got our masters together, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Well, I just know we're gonna get through it, Cal.
Yeah, no, hey man, we definitely got through it, and just to let people know, man, I mean, there's so much more impact. There's a lot of impact that players can make while they're playing in the league and while they're done, but it's so much more than that. And I think that your story just shows that. It shows perseverance. It shows that the willingness to continue to keep working and not settling. And so I'm proud of you.
No, I appreciate that, man. I'm proud of you,
man. So I appreciate you coming on. Before you leave now, if you had to give advice to a college, I would say to a college student. College student, what advice would you give to them? And it could be just in general. It doesn't, what advice would you give to a college student?
I try my best not to sound cliche when I'm asked that question, man. I try my best, but I would say just be intentional. I've used it, like I said, all of my successes have come from me being intentional on what I've been doing. So whether it's what you're deciding your major is going to be, who you're hanging around, your schedule, just be intentional in everything you do, man.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, man. It's a blessing to have you here on this show.
Oh, no, man. Thanks, man. I'm a fan. I'm going to keep watching, man.
I appreciate.
It's too big for me, Cal.
Hey, man. Hey, Neville, when you calling me, if you calling me for anything, you know I'm there.
Oh, man. No, I appreciate it, man.
But I appreciate you coming on Life After Sports Podcast, episode 7 with Ray Shipman. And until next time, my brother, I appreciate the support.
All right, Cal. Be easy out there. Be safe.
All right, man. Will do. You do the same. All right.